we're seeing a lot of men, and I am a guy, but I'm going to be truthful about what's going on in society. We're seeing a lot of men in society rape, sexually assault, think that they can do whatever they want to women. I know as I was raised not to do that, to ask for consent, to actually respect the woman. And women actually do like that. For the men that are listening, because there's a lot of men that do listen to this show, it's mostly men. You guys know, do not do anything stupid with woman. Act nice to the woman. She will respect you back, and she will actually give you what you want if you actually respect her and treat her like a regular person. So it's common sense. They're not animals, they're human beings. So with that, sorry to rant and rave, Eileen, but we're going to go into this. This is Eileen Torres. She has a book coming out, which she's going to discuss that. And we're going to also discuss woman issues in general. So Eileen, again, sorry to rant and rave, but I think the men that are listening need to hear this. And I know most of them are on the same page because we are a progressive show. But thanks so much, Eileen Torres, for coming on and speaking about this issue. That's really important.
Well, it's actually my honor and privilege to be with you. And let me say something in praise of men, because there are many enlightened men out there, especially younger men. They have a very different view of women because they grew up with women in a different setting. So, you know, they're mothers and sisters, but they saw their moms go to work. They also may work for a female supervisor. They may have the head of the company or the owner to be female. So it's very different now. And we're seeing just, you know, a good turn of events. I mean, you're even seeing women that are coaches now, assistant coaches in Major League Sports. You're seeing women that are refs and umpires. So a lot of things are turning in the right direction. And for the young men and the older men that are considering women their equal, I say, please spread the good word, because we love men. We want to get along with men. We want men to be our allies. But there's a bunch of baloney going on that really affects negatively women. And when you affect a woman, you 90% of the time affect her children.
Yeah. So let's talk about that and dive right into that. And the way my format is, if you bring up a comment or something that I like, we're going to go right into that. So you did bring up about young women in general, and obviously we're targeting a young demographic on this. So I want to touch on this point. I'm a teacher. I've dealt with kids anywhere from the age of 13 to, actually, I should even go back. As a teacher, I've dealt with kids from the age of 8 to 20. So with that said, and I want to ask you this, Eileen, is, you know, we see a lot of young women, especially the teens and even the 20-year-olds for that matter, really going on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and they see these pictures of women that have, and I'm just going to say these words out because it is what it is. You know, we see women with huge breasts and they're showing them on Instagram. They change the lighting, they change the backgrounds. I don't know how to do all that junk, but they do that so they look like 10 out of 10, like the most amazing woman in the world, like supermodels. We see young women look at these women and they don't see the airbrushing. They don't see the fake boobs or the fake butt or whatever it may be for that matter. They look at that and say, I want to be like that. I strive to be like that, which in a way, okay, that's fine. You know, if you want to work out and be in good shape, you know, God bless you, more power to you. That's for guys too. But the thing we're seeing is, and I saw this with guys dealing with them too, is we're seeing the rise of anorexia, bulimia, because they want to be skinny and look a certain way, anxiety, depression issues are on the rise. I know this is not about men, but we were talking about men in the last program. Male suicide is sky high right now. I mean, it's as high as it can go as far as young men. But to go back into women in general, why do you feel like that is that these women really, and a lot of these women are really technology savvy. They know how to do the airbrushing. They know how these pictures work better than even me.
Right.
But they fall into that trap, into wanting to look like Kim Kardashian or this model, that model. Why do you feel like that is? And what advice would you give to these young women that are falling into that trap, which leads you right down a bad rabbit hole as far as mental health goes?
Well, there's not one standard for beauty. That's the first thing to understand. There's not one standard for beauty, and not everyone has to conform to one look. You don't have to have long, silky hair and fake eyelashes and big boobs and a big booty, you know, and a tiny waist. I mean, those things are great. I would love to have a tinier waist and, you know, all the things that, you know, we dream about. But a lot of what has happened is that women have been super sexualized by men's fantasies. And so we should, in their minds, conform with that ideal. Now, I wish that the same thing was for men. Let's have like the super sexy, you know, 8-pack guy with, you know, beautiful thick hair and luscious lips and, you know, cut like crazy. You know, we make things almost unattainable. And when you see that this is, or when you become indoctrinated that this is what you're supposed to look like, well, it does really terrible harm to you, because we are all born the way we are born. Now, we all have the ability to improve.
Right.
Everyone can be attractive. There's no doubt about that. Everyone can be attractive with proper grooming and hairstyles, and for women, a little bit of makeup and the right clothing. The same thing for men. You know, men are getting Spanx now in their shirts. Men are having the hair ripped out of their chest because they want to be more appealing to women. So in some respects, it goes both ways, but always the more extreme is for the woman. The woman has to meet this super ideal of what a woman should look like. Whereas, just look in the movies, you see like an actor like John Candy, you know, a big, unattractive guy with a beautiful woman. You never see older women with young hot guys and everyone says, oh yeah, well that's cool. Well, that doesn't happen. So we've got these double standards in the way we look at each other. And for young women, and especially young girls, I would say, don't fall into that trap. Really enhance your own beauty. Every person has something beautiful about them. Enhance that beauty and really be happy that, first of all, you can walk. How about the people who can't walk, you know, or people who are missing limbs or can't speak or can't hear or can't see? I mean, there's so many things that we have to be grateful for, that we should concentrate a little bit more on that than looking like, you know, the super sex models. And don't ever let anybody pressure you into thinking that's what you need to look like.
What, you know, can you tell the viewers a little bit about you in general and why they do call you the Lady in Red?
Sure. Okay, I am a 69-year-old Latina. I'm Chicana, which for some people that don't understand what that is, that's Mexican American.
Right.
I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to go to college at a time when even a smart girl like me was not being geared toward the path of college.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, I've been able to go on and have jobs in a career that, you know, I have a career that most people, I mean, I never heard of it. I became an expert on salsa music and dance, which has really set me apart in many ways, because salsa, like politics, is a male-dominated industry. And why I'm the Lady in Red? Well, first of all, I love the color red. It's very vibrant. I wear red lipstick because Latinas love red lipstick. And so a red dress and red lipstick goes together. And then, you know, there are songs about, you know, women in red. So as I met with an image consultant, she told me, when you are doing these podcasts, wear red. And so I went out and got 3 red dresses and I've been rotating them, and people remember the lady in red, even if they don't remember my name. Then it'll say, oh yeah, Eileen Torres, she's the woman in red.
Eileen, I see the well, I don't even know if this is the correct terminology because that's how much I know about women's shoes, but I see the stiletto, I think, in the back, if that's the
Yes.
correct term for it.
Yes, I've got, you know, a lot of artwork that is very
Right.
feminine related. I love being a woman. I love femininity, and I love fashion. I have, like so many women, you know, at least 100 pairs of shoes.
Yeah.
And they asked us to make our background reflect who we are. And I'm a girly girl. And so that's why you see what you see back there.
What made you want to get into politics? Was it an event in your life, or just did somebody in your family really, were they involved in it?
Well, I'll have to tell you, when I went to college,
Okay.
I really learned the value of coalition building. And then I started paying attention to the news. And then, many years later, I moved to Washington, D.C. In 1987, I moved to Washington, D.C., and I lived there for 28 years. So Los Angeles is Hollywood and Washington, D.C. is politics. And you could be walking somewhere, you'll be in the airport, and, you know, you see a senator coming off a plane or getting ready to board a flight. And so they are the superstars of the Washington, D.C. area. And when you consider that Washington, D.C. is the most powerful city in the world, you really become enmeshed in what's going on in your environment. And politics was everywhere. And then as a Latina, I felt a very strong sense of duty and responsibility to learn what was going on that was affecting my community and what I might be able to do to make our best interest more heard, more prevalent, and more acted upon. And so I began, you know, calling Senate offices and calling congressional representatives offices, because when they get a phone call or they get a letter and you are the ones that can vote for them, they pay attention. So that's what really got me into it. And then, you know, I got the Washington Post every day, and, you know, that would take like a couple hours to read everything that's going on. And so that really made me more interested. And then because of the feminine aspect, seeing all of the legislation that was being enacted or voted down that would help women, that stuff really started riling me up.
So as being a woman, and I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you probably were a supporter of hers. Maybe you...
I was
Okay.
because I don't think anybody can deny that she was uniquely qualified for that office.
I agree with that.
Yes. Whether or not you like her personally, I mean, you don't have to like someone to elect them a leader if they're going to do good for the country. She already had established relationships around the world. She knew all the power players from her time as First Lady, and then, of course, as Secretary of State, and then later on as the first female candidate. Who would ever believe that a clown could beat a truly uniquely qualified, intelligent woman? Well, I didn't think so. And when it happened, I was stunned, like a great majority of Democrats were, and independents, even some Republicans, because remember all of the never Trumpers in the Republican Party? I mean, and then look what happened to our country.
Right.
I know there are people down the street from me who still have his flags waving. And he was just in Ohio a couple weeks ago,
Right.
saying the same lies. Okay, I'm just going to say, saying the same lies to people, and they're all eating it up. So yes, I was definitely for Hillary, and I believe that if Hillary would have been in office, this pandemic would not have
I agree with
risen
that.
to the global level that it did. I think she would have nipped it in the bud because she knew what was going on in Wuhan. And if she didn't know, somebody would have told her and she would have had the right people on it immediately. But instead, we let Mr. Donald Trump say that, hey, it's not a thing and it's going to go away. It's going to magically disappear. And people said, well, yes, it will. And even though he's had the vaccine,
Yeah.
his people still aren't taking it. So that is something.
But I want to get to the point of the issue. We, like I said, we saw the misogynistic events of 2016 by Donald Trump. And a lot of those things were code words, whether it was, misogynistic against women, racism against blacks and Hispanics. And a lot of these people still voted for him. So why do you feel like women in general, we saw this and we talked about this before the show started with the minimum wage and also paid family leave, that there are women that are voters, there are women that are representatives and senators that say, oh, we can't have a woman president. Oh, we can't vote for this because it's going to hurt our donors. But meanwhile, it's going to help everybody. Paid family leave is not only going to help women, it's going to help men.
Yes.
It's going to help men.
Yes.
Universal health care is going to not
Right.
only help women, it's going to help men. These programs all go together, not just to help women or men, they help everyone. So
Right.
why do you feel like people are against these, or they just call them women's programs, or we can't have a woman at the top of the helm here in the United States?
Well, there's still a prevailing thought that women are not as good as men, that we don't measure up. We're not as smart. We're not as resilient. And, that's not true. It's not across the board, certainly.
To interrupt quick, is that
Mhm.
because of a lot of society issues? Like, we even go back to like the G.I. Joe and to the Bobby and Ken. Women are supposed to play with Bobby and Ken. Men are going to be the Macho Man, G.I. Joe. And Trump played through this when he was playing Macho Man and YMCA, even though, he hates gays, but those were gay songs. But that's besides the point. But we see these societal issues like that, and we also see the societal issues like, for instance, rap music. Fuck woman and pussy this and ass this, and you show the woman shaking her ass with a thong on and all this stuff, and it just sexualizes, over sexualize not just men, but to women to think like they're supposed to be like that. The same thing with pornography. It sexualizes men to think they should treat women like that, but it also sexualizes the woman to accept that behavior. So is this just a big societal problem that may never escape unless we get rid of these things such as like rap music, pornography, and other stimulants that are like basically cocaine to the brain?
Well, I don't think we should get rid of those things, but I think that we have to have a greater understanding of the value of human beings, and men and women are created equally. We should have the same rights and the same responsibilities. I would say that as far as lyrics that demean women, I think that those should not be played on the radio, because we are getting so many messages through media. I mean, we see photos all the time of women, we see videos of women, it's just, we're bombarded with it. So we absorb these messages and think, well, God, I guess that's the way everybody is, and that's the way I'm supposed to be. So no, I don't think we should get rid of pornography. And there's pornography for women too, but it's very different. It's very different. I mean, women love sex as much as men do. We're not supposed to, or we've been told that we don't. But there's two ways of looking at things, and I think that it really needs to start when kids are young and need to be told that, you know, you have to respect little girls. I think we all grew up when our mothers say to our brothers, you don't hit a girl. You know, that's what my mom and dad said to my brothers, you know, you don't hit a girl. So that's one thing. But I also think that we need to start saying that, you know, you have to respect a girl the way you respect your sisters or your mother or your aunts or whoever. So we haven't instilled that enough into our kids. And, you know, in the book that I am going to publish later this year, I talk about the talk that males give to their sons or their male charges about sex. And it never has anything to do with what the meaning is, why sex exists, or how you gain the best results by respecting the other person. There's just so much that needs to go into that talk beside don't get a girl pregnant. That's pretty much all that goes into the talk, you know, and we're never told that, hey, you may be one and done, but if you're with her once, she's coming back because she thinks you really love her, you know, so that guys don't understand, you know, you walk away, but hey, we're chasing right after you because we think we love you.
You know, it's hard for a woman to find a man now because the man doesn't even know themselves or their own feelings. So they can't open up to the woman. And if they feel like if they open up to the woman, they're considered a woman themselves.
Yeah, well, first of all, little boys are raised not to cry. Even if
Right.
they get hurt, oh, don't cry. You're not a sissy. You're not a little girl. Like you said, suck it up. You know, let a little boy be his natural self. If he cries because he's hurt, comfort him. If he cries because his feelings are hurt, well, you can comfort him for that too. It only takes a few seconds. And when you do that, you show these new male children that their feelings are valid and they're not going to be put down for having feelings. And so a lot of the problem is that men have had to tamp down their feelings, their emotions for so long that when the proper time to open up to your partner, your girlfriend, your wife, you're just not equipped to do it because you've had no practice doing it since you were a little kid, since you were a toddler. And so when men are encouraged to share their feelings, share their emotions, they feel that they're going to look like weaklings, that they're going to be more feminine. And you know what? We all have male and feminine traits. We just have to accept that. And there's nothing wrong. You know, one of the good things is that you see more men crying nowadays.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's a very good thing because men have feelings too. And, you know, you shouldn't bottle those up. You know, men that cry tears of joy are great. You see that. Men that cry when they lose, you know, the World Series, you know, you can understand that disappointment. And when you're able to let that out, you're able to have a little bit more of the emotional equipment to deal with the feminine side of human beings. Well, and it's great that some prominent personalities,
Right.
like Kevin Love from the Cleveland Cavaliers, came out and spoke about his own depression. And oh my God, what was our swimmer, the most decorated
Phelps.
swimmer?
Phelps.
Phelps. He
Michael
also
Phelps.
came out and spoke about that. And, you know, women are a little bit more apt to talk about that. And you're hearing more about people talking about their therapists. And therapy can be good. It shouldn't be a stigma. I just had this conversation with a Latina that works in an addiction recovery organization saying, how do we get the word out to people that this should not stigmatize you? You should not feel less of a human being or weaker than other people because you have a problem. No one faults a person for seeking treatment for cancer or heart ailments or even a toothache, why should we not accept people that are having mental problems to seek remedies for that so they can get back to feeling good again?
Right. That's 100% right. And we see people that are, going through that consistently, and it's sad. And if they don't get the treatment, then they're going to obviously get worse, and it could lead to a real serious, sad effect on their mind and their body in general. So I do hope that people do, if they need help, get help. Well, I know we went down kind of a sad hole with that, but with my last question, it's really sad what's going on in our society. So, as a woman, when you hear these stories about Donald Trump, Bill Cosby, Epstein, Clinton, and all these powerful men that have done stuff with women, obviously some of these stories are, worse than others. I think personally, Cosby and Epstein are worse than Clinton. But regardless, it's really terrible. And I want to know, as a woman, how do you feel about these stories? And what would you say to these men in general? Are they just like, is there something wrong with them, their brains, or do they just have some sort of ego trip, or what's the story?
Well, first of all, it infuriates me because more and more we see that the powerful men with a lot of money, Harvey Weinstein, being one of the
Right.
perfect examples, just feel that they are actually entitled to our bodies. And they think that they can do with us whatever they want that gratifies them.
Mhm.
And the more money and the more powerful they get, the more they feel that this is true. And they think that we just want to be with them because of, their power, and that power makes them attractive. But we all know that it takes two, and if one is saying no or is shrinking back, you can't do that. So some of the good things that came out of it was the Me Too movement,
Mhm.
where women are actually coming forward and saying, oh yeah, this happened to me too. Oh yeah, this happened to me on many occasions. It made me think about things that happened to me. And even when I brought it out, people said, oh yeah, and don't you remember when this happened to you? I'm like, oh my God, I forgot about that, because now I've never been raped. I've had some sexual assaults, just walking in public. In
Yeah.
public, I've been sexually assaulted. And it just makes me think, where do you get off thinking that you have the right to touch my body just because it's in front of your eyes? And the men, I think, we're finally seeing that men are being punished for this. They're losing their good name. They've lost their position. A lot of them have lost money. And I think that is a good and fair. But like you said, it's not just the powerful. Men just think they have dominion over women's bodies and over our lives, that they have the authority to tell us what to do and how to do it.
Eileen Torres, can you tell us about the new book that's going to be coming out at the end of the year? What made you want to write it and what it's about?
Well, what I'll tell you, what really made me want to write a book was I wanted to have, and I'm going to be totally honest here, I wanted to have
Mhm.
more credentials to do public speaking because I love public speaking. And so I thought, I'm going to write a book on things that I'm passionate about. And one is women's issues and women's equality, and sex and politics. And so in the book, there is a lot about the spiritual nature of sex, how other cultures regard sex, how we as human beings really need to relate to it and see the beauty in it, and stop blaming women for men raping us because supposedly we entice them. And then another part is about politics, because if you would give a simple civic test to a lot of people and say, okay, how many senators are there and how many congressional representatives are there, most people don't know. And that's just like politics 101. And so I outline these things in, really short paragraphs so people can learn. And I talk about some of the issues that go against women and list these senators or the representatives that voted against, for instance, the Paycheck Fairness Act or the Violence Against Women Act. People who actually said, no, we can't have that. Why would we want to take care of women like that? And then I also do a portion that talks about the end of male dominant energy and the emergence of female dominant energy that was marked at a time when people thought the world was going to end. Remember the Mayan calendar that was coming to an end in 2012, and people thought the world was going to end? Well, of course, no one asked the Mayans what was going on, and that was only one of their many calendars. But what that signified was the end of a very long time period during which that time male dominant energy prevailed. And on the day when the earth was supposed to end, that came to an end. And then the female dominant energy took over. And I thought, well, gee, that's going to take a really long time before realization actually, and probably not in our lifetimes. But then what happened? The Women's March on Washington, D.C., where millions of women around the world and on every continent got together. And in my reasoning, that coming together of so many bodies and minds and emotions accelerated that feminine dominant energy, so that we're seeing some good turns. Like I was saying, there's more women in Congress.
Yeah.
There are more women that are becoming the heads of foundations and the heads of corporate conglomerates, et cetera, et cetera. It's slow, but it's coming about, and women are feeling more comfortable standing up for themselves, and not just themselves, but women in other parts of the world that have no education, no money, no voice, no power. We have to stand in the book. I really ask women to become allies. And if you have a voice and you have education and you have money and you have power, stand up for those girls who can't get an education because they're girls. Stand up for those women who can't decide how many kids they have. Stand up for those women who have to accept, another 4 or 5 wives coming into the home. Stand up for the women that are against female genital mutilation. So my book covers a variety of topics, and it will be coming out later this year so that I can really, really push it during Women's History Month in March.
That was pretty incredible. The way I think we should look out for Eileen Torres to run for some sort of political office.
No, you don't want to do that. No, no. I do. Politics. I'm very into it, but I do not want to be an elected official. I would rather, donate money to campaigns or something that would help the women that really have a strong inkling and love and passion for this, because my passion comes in knowing and spreading the word rather than making laws.
Well, I appreciate your time, and I look forward to having you on again to talk about salsa dancing. But also, I do want to talk about the book when it comes out in March.
Wonderful.
Well, before you're gonna have it out before March, you said, or?
Oh yeah, it should be out by the end of the year.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah, by the end of the year. It's nearly done. I had actually sent it into the Library of Congress for copyright about 2 years ago. But since it's a nonfiction book, so many things have changed that I had to update. And, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to finish it probably by October and have it published by the end of the year. And I don't care what changes come. People just have to realize this book was written before whatever the new thing is.
Okay. Eileen Torres, definitely look out for her. And Eileen, can you tell people lastly, before we end this interview, where people can find more about you?
Yes, you can find me easily on Facebook, Eileen Torres on Facebook. You can also find me on LinkedIn, and you can find me on my website, Eileen Torres Productions, plural, EileenTorresProductions.com.
All right, Eileen. Hey, thanks so much. I really appreciate this, and I look forward to doing this again.
I would be thrilled to be back.